This is Pam Wolf, today with candidate for Las Cruces Mayor Mike Tellez. I'm welcoming you today to A Vision for Las Cruces. This is our third time to meet together, Mike, and I'm excited because we're going to be talking about three important points toward changing Las Cruces in an incredible way. You have really fine-tuned your ideas and come up with some practical plans that will give us direction for how to make a difference in Las Cruces in a relatively short period of time. And I'm not talking about new swimming pools or bike paths or planting trees. I'm talking about some things that will change the lives of the people who are struggling to really make their lives good for their families. Can you talk to us a little bit about what kind of plans you have to change Las Cruces?
Well, Pam, we have a three-point plan on building economic growth in Las Cruces. As you know, I spoke to Davin Lopez, the president of Sea Valley Economic Growth, and I asked him, what do we need to do to bring the good-paying jobs into Las Cruces, get jobs up in the West Mesa, good-paying jobs? He talked about three areas of importance that caught my attention. He talked about, he said, most businesses, they look at the crime index. They look at how the city is dealing with it and the crime index. Well, we'll take that one to start with. So I started looking at the crime index, and to my shock, our crime index is an 8 out of 100. So that number right there, what that means is 92% of American cities are safer than ours.
That's really a little unnerving. It's very different than the statistics that were in existence when my family and I first moved to Las Cruces. But I do see evidence of the difficulty that we're having. What has happened to us? Well,
one thing is that violent crime went up 110% over last year alone. And of course, in all fairness, there was more murders in June than we've seen ever. There was 5 murders in June. And that, of course, is going to knock it way up. But that did knock it way up. Of course, we talked about how those five arrests were made, but of the 5 people arrested, they had been arrested 125 times.
That's an astonishing statistic,
yes.
Mike. How can the city change that kind of a situation?
Well, one thing is we voted on a release plan back in 2016. It's catch and release. If they're not a harm to the community, it's okay to release them. So the judges are releasing people they deem not a threat to the community. Well, you know, they got it wrong on those 5 guys. So we have to ask ourselves, how many times are they getting it wrong? That's something that needs to be voted back out by the voters. And of course, I believe voters voted on that not knowing exactly what it was.
Unintended consequences.
Yes. So crime, I talked to the chief of police about that, and we discussed that in length and how we could vote that back out. Talked about, I said, well, what do you need? I said, I'm hearing that you're really short on police officers. He said, well, if we could get 20 officers, 5 for AM, 5 for PM, and 5 for overnight, and 5 detectives, that would be great. And if 7 new cars would give us a good amount of cars to patrol with. And I said, well, that is simple enough. I said, what else do we need to do? How do we get this under control? He said, with the resources they need, that they believe they could go in and get a bigger bite out of the problem. And we need to get together. Of course, we all know the mayor has no influence over anything. He has authority with no influence. So what we would do is we'd get together with the police chief, we'd go to the judges, and we'd sit in there, and we would start discussing the people they're releasing and the consequences, show the spike in crime, and see what we could do to get that solved before we're able to vote for it again.
You and I talked last week about a program that used to be active in Las Cruces, but I think that it's been, if not completely eliminated, certainly not, it's no longer a focus in Las Cruces, and that's the community policing with the bicycles for the officers. I remember when I was growing up, knowing a police officer was a privilege. My uncle was an Albuquerque cop. He started policing when he was 16 years old in the city of Albuquerque. It was a pretty young city at that time. But officers had great respect. Today, with the influence of some of the music, with some of the television programming, a lot of times young people have a very, very unsettling perspective of who law enforcement officers are. And you were talking about ideas for how to introduce the young people to the police officers in their community to change their attitude about policing.
Well, the beat cop, that's what we grew up with. I lived in Roswell. I still know Officer Cleveland. He was our friend. Mm-hmm. One time Officer Cleveland was going down the street. He turned the corner and his motorcycle slipped out from under him. You should have seen all the concern from all the students running over there trying to help him, but he was our friend. I talked to the chief again, and he talked about getting in a stronger force into the communities on the bikes, getting to know the community, getting a relationship going. And I've even thought about, why don't we assign a couple of officers to a neighborhood and tell them, that is your neighborhood. Go meet all the people in it. On your shift, spend this much time a day getting to know your community. Help them get neighborhood watch, get them your name, tell them how they can teach them how they can prevent themselves from being burglarized and what to do. And start a neighborhood program. And he said that is something they're working on. And I said, that is something we would like to get going real soon.
Is that something that the city can help the police department
Absolutely.
Look for grants and things like that?
Absolutely. And whatever we need to do as a city, whatever we need to budget in, even if we have to hire above the 20 officers, we need to hire enough officers to where we can have enough officers to go into the neighborhoods and work the neighborhoods, get to know the people.
Mike, we know that there's a gang influence that has infected our city, and that's a real struggle. But we also know that there are a lot of young people that have been sucked into a drug culture that is very, very damaging to them. What do you see the city being able to do to help with that issue? Because if we don't address that, if we don't address the drug issue, it's going to be difficult really to finish up addressing the crime issue.
Well, I've talked about substations. So I started studying what is the cost of a portable substation to put. Now the substations, say for instance we got 5 substations. Okay, during the day there's not much going on. We would park those substations in front of the schools and have a substation right in front of those schools, high school, and start moving down and have a substation at school. At night, that would go into an at-risk neighborhood, and it'd park there. Well, I started looking, and I said, as businessmen, you've got to look for the cost. And I said, well, those are pretty expensive. Then I started seeing these real beautiful buses that were substations. I started thinking, my goodness, we have these retired city buses. Why don't we convert those city buses to substations? We already have them. They're in the lot, they're paid for, and they're available. So why don't we get these city buses, convert those to mobile substations. We have however many buses we get as we retire them, there's a new substation.
Mike, that's taking an asset that the city has, that the taxpayers bought.
Exactly.
That's just sitting dormant now.
Exactly.
And utilizing it. I think that that's an amazing, amazing idea. Wow, I love that.
The cost to retro it off is a fraction of what the bus costs. So we already have the bus. All we need to do is retro it, and we have all those mobile units. They go to the neighborhoods that are at risk and park right there at night. They're big enough. They run. They're good working order. So that would be a good start to neighborhood substations.
That's amazing. I don't know what the situation is right now with the Doñana County Sheriff's Office, but I know when Todd Garrison was sheriff, he did a lot of substations throughout the county because the county's so big. And he set things up and found that there was a tremendously positive response to that. Has that ever been tried in Las Cruces?
You know what? It is at a smaller level because, I looked at those substations. They are very expensive. But if we already have the main part of it, we reduce that cost by 80%.
Wow, that's
and
pretty
Todd
amazing.
Garrison, Todd Garrison's a good friend of mine, real good friend, and I respect him a lot. And I believe that when he did that, the impact was great. And that is part of whose idea I'm looking at is what Todd did, and we have that on hand. And in business, you got to use what you have and fully utilize every resource you already have first before you even think of buying something else. So when we go and say, okay, what do we have in the city just there? We start utilizing what we already have.
That's an attitude that has gotten mankind through some really difficult situations in the past. I just spent a week with my daughter who's from Alaska, and they still have villages in Alaska that the whole community goes out and brings in the whale, and they utilize every bit of that whale. It's amazing to find out the things that they have found that whale can provide for their community. Mm-hmm. But when things come easy, it's easier to just cast off something and start new. I love this idea of repurposing.
Exactly. And that's something that's what made America great. America's not always had everything at the tips of their finger. We've had to learn how to get by and how to make things work and get by with what we had.
How to repurpose and
exactly.
recycle. This is a recycling program,
That's it.
Mike.
So
How
we're
amazing
recycling
is
that bus right there.
That's a great idea.
Because it brings peanuts when we sell it.
Well, if we can move crime into a place where we have safer streets, that benefits every aspect
Absolutely.
of the community. It makes things better for the businesses. It makes things better for the senior citizens, the retirees, better for the families. I remember a time when kids used to be able to go out and play in the front yard. They really enjoyed being able to just go out and play, and people weren't worried about it. Mm-hmm. Now, if you see children playing in the front yard, you cringe and you think, is anybody watching them? Are they going to be okay? Mm-hmm. What's happening here? It's really changed our culture. And so I love the fact that this is something that is really a focus for you, and it is one of your 3-point.
That's number one.
One of your 3 points on your 3-point plan to fundamentally change Las Cruces in a way that will make it a better place for all of the people in the city to live. Everybody but the criminals. And you're really addressing the criminals too, because you're trying to find ways to help get them off drugs. You're working on finding ways to educate them better. And that's what I'd like for us to talk about after the break, one of your other points, and that's taking education and creating an environment that will bring us more jobs. We're going to have to take a little bit of a break here. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes. I'm Pam Wolf. I'm here today with candidate Mike Tellez, candidate for mayor of Las Cruces. And I hope you'll stay tuned and join us after the break so that we can talk some more about how to change Las Cruces and hear Mike's vision for our city. Thank you.
So great, you can do all these different ears like that.
Okay.
Nice.
Guys, not all. here. Horizon Granite is here. We'll come to you to customize your kitchen and bathroom with beautiful countertops and cabinets. Find out more at horizongranite.com. Call us at 575-650-3180.
Horizon Granite is here.
It's here.
Make yourself a beautiful home.
Hi, I'm Ray Bamberg with Here on Earth. I would like to invite you for a free hearing evaluation to our office. We've been here in southern New Mexico for 34 years helping people hear better.
With candidate for Las Cruces Mayor Mike Tellez. I'm welcoming you back after our short break. Earlier we talked a little bit about the crime situation and how to change that. Now we're going to talk about the economic development for our city. Mike, everybody's saying, oh, we need to have better economic development, and yet all around us we see businesses that are closing, we hear dire straits, we hear people crying. More of them bemoaning the problems than offering solutions. But you have given it some thought, and you've talked to people and come up with a realistic plan to change the economic future of this city. Talk to us a little bit, if you will, about your concept for education that will progress into good jobs for our young people.
Well, again, I go back to my meeting with Mr. Lopez at Mesilla Valley Economic Growth. Number one, we addressed, which was a crime. Number two, he said education, which leads to employee base, but education. He said, no, businesses want to know there's a good educational system in place wherever they're going to move their families. He said, and they need a workforce. So I went to talk to the superintendent of public schools. I started right where the kids began their education. And we talked about the schools, the state of the schools, how they're going. And then I asked her, I said, I understand we have the degree program where kids can graduate with an associate's degree. And when I taught Com 265 at NMSU, I saw the kids that came in that had the early college. And I was amazed how smart they were. And I said, okay, not everybody is academic minded. I certainly wasn't when I was in high school. But so what I did was I said, what if we could screen them in 9th grade and find out what direction best suits you? What do you want to do? Find out what the student wants to do. I would have never wanted to go to college because I couldn't stand academics. What if we offered them to go to Donana Community College be an electrician, be a welder, be a heating and cooling, become a auto body painter, auto mechanic, one of the vocational classes offered at DACC. What if we could send them 3 days a week to DACC, 2 days a week to school for core classes? What we would be doing, and they ask, well, what does that have to do with the business coming in? What that does is that gives the people who would have otherwise fallen through the cracks another hope. So you know what? When I was in high school, I would have said, you know what? I'd love to learn how to paint a car. Well, a lot of these students, they'll have another pick. They'll get to choose something they really want to do. So they go to the vocational school. In summer, they do their internships in the related field. When they graduate at 18 years old, they're licensed mechanic, licensed paint and body, licensed welder, licensed electrician. They're ready to go out at 18 years old and make a good wage.
Mike, that changes a lot of things. I know for myself, trying to find someone to handle my broken air conditioner in the middle of a Las Cruces summer is a nightmare, because it took several days to find someone who was qualified, who would be able to come out and be able to take care of it. To add to our base of good contractors would be amazing.
And they'd make good money. They'd be a living wage at 18.
They would be spending their living wage in the city.
That's right.
Instead of taking a job outside of the city and spending their income somewhere else.
So in order to set up a good base, we need to get all the related services with enough staff to where they are able to handle whatever comes up. Large building developments. We can grow when we have good people out there to handle the work that comes in. That's one way of getting that going, and that will get a student from quitting. And you know, you can be in high school and go all the way to 12th grade and have quit in 10th grade because you don't want to be there. And what happens? Well, you'll go in the class, and if you don't want to be there, you could be disruptive. You could start being the person that disrupts a class that does want to be there. So what we're doing is we're giving students a why you should stay in school, because this is the direction you can go, not in your 20s, but at 18 when you graduate. While they're in their vocational school, then we've taken kids out that don't want to be there. The academic-minded kids, we will be able to focus on their academics and get them into college with their associate's degree and get them prepared for an academic life, and better screen those kids. Ask them, what do you think of engineering? What would you do if IBM moved to Las Cruces? Would you be interested in being an engineer for IBM? Well, of course. I love that. So what we do is, rather than saying go to college, get a degree, and not that, we tell them, what if we brought Intel in here? What if we brought IBM in here? What if we brought a robotics company in here? Would that be so? Find out exactly what interests those students, and let's start talking about what could potentially come in here and get the students saying, I'd love to do that. Like the facility for mental health that we're going to talk about in a little bit, get them ready to be a nurse, doctors, and prepare them so when they go to NMSU, they don't spend their first year or two in college trying to figure out what they want to do when they graduate. They have an idea of where they're going.
When you have kids that are excited about their future, that recognize that they have a future, and they're not dealing with a futility or a sense of worthlessness, you have less trouble with them being susceptible to the drug culture or to the gang culture. So I see the second point that you're talking about as feeding into solutions for the first point as well.
Right. And these points, everything has to happen in order to achieve economic growth. That's why it's never as easy as it sounds. We'll just have the company come in here. Well, there's certain things you got to do first. I spoke with the new chancellor of the university on Monday, Mr. Arvizu. Great man. And I'm going to tell you why we're so blessed to have him there. He's from Alamogordo. He's from this area. He knows our culture. He is excited. It was one of the best hours I've spent in a long time. He's excited. I said, what would you think about us working closer together, making this Aggie country, and working as a team along with some of the other entities, chief of police, the head of La Clinica, the head of economic development, and work as a group all together to try to build Las Cruces into that city.
You know, I was in Tucson, excuse me, not Tucson, I was in San Diego last week, and I was astonished because let me tell you something, I learned so much about the San Diego universities while I was there because they were so prominent. There was so much promotion for the universities in the businesses.
It's like Gator country. When I was in Gainesville, that's Gator country, and that is that. Well, I told him, this needs to be Aggie country. Everywhere you go, you have to see Aggies. I said, we need to go in these elementary schools and middle schools and get those Aggie country, get these kids thinking of college, thinking of the future, give them hope, give them something to look for. He was so excited. He said, you know what, I'd love to do that. I would be glad to meet at least every month.
Oh, Mike, that's exciting. Partly because I see you bringing people together. I see you bringing the assets that we have in this valley together with common goals to talk about boosting the city and making a difference. We have to do that. We have to hold on.
Pam, you'll notice that I'm not talking about bringing anyone in from anywhere else and paying them all this money to figure something out. I'm talking about using what we already have and getting where we need to go with it.
Well, I think you are just a recycling king.
That's
Mike
it. We
Tellez.
cannot be hiring companies from out of state, out of town, to come in here and tell us what we can find out ourselves.
Well, we want people to know that they're going to have the opportunity to vote for Mike Tellez, first place, second place, third place. We'd like first place votes, right?
Yes, and we'll take second place if you've already decided who you're going to vote for. I would appreciate your second pick.
And for those people who don't know what that comment is all about, it's ranked choice voting. We keep talking about we're going to do a program that will explain ranked choice
Yes, and
voting.
hopefully we get
for our
Ben
folks.
Rawson to come in here and explain it to us. He has done a beautiful job, too.
He is absolutely the best. He really understands it and all of its ramifications and what its history is and how it works. People need to be aware before they go to the polls. They need to go to the polls. They need to vote.
And early voting is getting ready to start.
Getting ready to start soon. We're going to be giving out information about that. Please check out Mike Tellez's Facebook page, Mike Tellez for Las Cruces Mayor.
And please like us.
Please like and follow the Facebook page and check out the website. The website has got more information in depth, and we'll be able to follow that. For now, our time is up already, Mike. It's gone by so fast. We're going to have to say goodbye until next week. This is Pam Wolf. I'm here with candidate for mayor, Mike Tellez. Thank you for joining with us today, Mike.
Oh,
I'm
you
looking
bet.
forward to talking more next week.
That's right. I'm Mike Tellez, and I approve this message. Lisa Parrott, Treasurer.